In 2009, a man named James Cooper walked into a hospital and gave away something that most people would never consider giving to a complete stranger: his kidney. He didn't know the recipient. He had never met him. He simply saw a notice about someone desperately needing a kidney transplant and decided, without hesitation, that if he could save a life, he would. Doctors called him remarkable. His family called him crazy. James just called it the right thing to do. What happened 10 years later, nobody could have predicted. James Cooper was 34 years old when he made the decision. He was a high school PE teacher in Columbus, Ohio, known for his infectious energy, his loud laugh, and his habit of staying late after school to help struggling students. He lived alone in a small apartment, drove a second-hand car, and spent his weekends volunteering at a local food bank. James wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. He was just a man who believed deeply that people existed to help each other. When he saw the hospital notice about a man named Daniel Reeves, a 41-year-old father of 3 whose kidneys had failed, something inside James simply said yes. His friends begged him to reconsider. His mother cried. His doctor made him wait 6 months to confirm he was certain. James never wavered. The surgery took place on a Tuesday morning in March 2009. James and Daniel had met only once before, a brief emotional meeting arranged by the hospital where Daniel had held James's hands and been unable to speak through his tears. James had simply said, "You have 3 kids, go live for them." The surgery was successful. Daniel's body accepted the kidney immediately. Within weeks, he was recovering at home with his family. James recovered alone in his apartment, in pain, unable to teach for 2 months, surviving on soup and television. He never asked for anything in return. He never contacted Daniel again. He simply healed and went back to his life. For 10 years, James and Daniel lived completely separate lives. Daniel rebuilt his health, watched his children grow, coached his son's little league team, and thanked God every single day for the second chance he had been given. James continued teaching, continued volunteering, and continued living quietly, the way he always had. He thought about Daniel sometimes, wondered how he was doing, but never reached out. In 2019, everything changed. James was driving home from school on a rainy Thursday evening when a truck ran a red light and hit his car at full speed. Paramedics found him unconscious, bleeding severely from a head injury with multiple broken bones. He was rushed to Columbus General, the same hospital where the kidney surgery had taken place 10 years earlier. The emergency room that night was chaotic. James needed immediate surgery, but had lost enormous amounts of blood. The hospital put out an urgent call for a rare blood type, AB negative, the same blood type as James. There was no match in the hospital's blood bank. The surgical team was running out of time. Then a man walked through the emergency room doors. He had seen the hospital's emergency broadcast on a local radio station while driving home from his son's baseball game. He hadn't planned to stop. Something just made him pull over and listen. His name was Daniel Reeves. His blood type was AB negative. He walked straight to the reception desk and said, "I heard you need blood. I'm here." Daniel had no idea the patient was James. He found out only after the surgery, when a nurse, recognizing his name from the hospital's records, put the pieces together and told him quietly who he had just helped save. Daniel stood in the hospital corridor and couldn't breathe for a full minute. Then he walked to James's recovery room, sat beside his bed, and waited for him to wake up. James opened his eyes 3 hours later to find a man he barely recognized sitting in the chair beside him. It took him a moment. Then it clicked. He stared at Daniel for a long time without speaking. Daniel finally broke the silence. "You gave me 10 more years with my kids," he said quietly. "I just needed to make sure you got yours." James, still weak from surgery, reached out and took Daniel's hand. Neither of them spoke again for several minutes. They didn't need to. Some things are too big for words. Today, James and Daniel are close friends. Their families have dinner together every few months. James attended Daniel's daughter's wedding last year. Daniel's youngest son, now 16, calls James his uncle. The doctors who treated James called his survival a miracle of timing. James and Daniel call it something simpler. They call it, what goes around comes around. In a world that can often feel cold and indifferent, the story of James and Daniel reminds us that one act of genuine selfless kindness can travel further than we will ever know. Sometimes it travels 10 years into the future and finds its way back just when you need it most. Subscribe to Stories That Hit Different, because every week we bring you stories that remind you, you are stronger than you think.